Hello, my friend. This is Christy Ruffino, and welcome back to the Profitable Book Incubator Book Creation Course Module 9. In today's module, we're going to go over the structure and the timeline for your book. At this point, you should have started writing, and you should be making some progress in that process. But what I want to do is I want to give you some more information so you can be better equipped to be able to finish your book knowing everything you need to know. So this is the basic structure of anything we do in the world, or as far as the writing process goes. Tell them what you're going to tell them. That's the introduction. Tell them, which is the body. And then finally, tell them what you told them. That is the conclusion. And that's basically what we're going to do here, but it gets a little more complicated when we're putting a book together. So the introduction is part of the front matter of the book, and the conclusion is part of the back matter of the book. So I'm going to go into more detail what's included in the front matter as well as the back matter. And the body is pretty simple. Those are all of the chapters of your book. But let's just jump into what's involved or what's included, possibly included in the front matter. And so you can see here on this illustration, these are all of the possible things you can include in the front matter of your book. Now, you don't have to have all of them. There are some things that are important that you do need to have. But many of these things are not important. They're just optional items. So the first thing you see is the testimonials and endorsement piece. Then you go to a half title. And that only has the title of your book, nothing else. And then you have the actual title page that includes the title, the author, and the publisher. Then is the copyright page. Now that is a page that you have to have, and you want to have a title page. You don't necessarily have to have a half title page, and you don't have to have testimonials and endorsements, but you want to have a title page and the copyright page. And then you've got the table of contents, which I think is pretty important for most books. And then you have a foreword, and then the preface. And you can see here, a foreword is when somebody else writes that for you. Then you have a preface. That's where you share how the book came into being. And then you've got an acknowledgement. That's where you're going to acknowledge anybody that helped you with the book. An introduction. Of course, you know what that is. You have a dedication. That's where if you want to dedicate your book to somebody specifically. And then the half title page again, and then the epigraph. That's where you would add a quote or a poem or some sort of a cool little phrase. So those pieces are all a part of the front matter. Now, I'm going to give you a little tip of what I did and what I do with my books. I love having testimonials and endorsements, and I think they're the key to anything we do in our business. It's basically other people edifying us and giving us credibility to make us more relatable and trustworthy. But I don't want to wait for those because sometimes those can take a long time. So what I did with my Treasured Tribes book is I actually had it finished without them because I had an event. I wanted to have my books done, and I was in a rush to get it finished. But then what I did is I was selling books. I was using them. I was going on about my merry way, promoting my book. I even did my Amazon campaign like that. But then I actually went onto Amazon and ordered books specifically for the people that I wanted them to endorse me. And I went on Amazon, I ordered them, it was shipped to them. I made now, they didn't have it back then, I don't think, but now they have those cute little gift bags. So you could do that and have with a little note and ask people to specifically endorse your book. Now there's another whole strategy to endorsements that I'm not even going to go into here, but you go ahead and start collecting all those testimonials or endorsements, and then you add them to the files again. So you basically will re-upload the files with those testimonials and endorsements in them. And so you basically just, you keep the same book in the system with the same ISBN and the same everything, but you just update the files with those pages inserted into them. So those are the different pieces to the front matter. Then of course you've got your chapters. That's easy. It's not easy. That's the hardest part to put together. But then it concludes with your back matter. You can see the conclusion is in here, but you also have the space for more testimonials. You have an epilogue, which could be a closure, an extra or outro, an afterword, a conclusion, an appendix, glossary, bibliography, and an index. So again, they're not all necessary, but they're possible depending on the book and what is included and how you want to, make sure that, like, if you have citations, you can add them to the bottom of each page. But if you have a lot of them, you may want to have a bibliography at the end. So those are just some of the possible pieces to your book. And let's talk about the timeline, because your book could take 4 years like mine took, or you could get it done in 4 months. I actually had somebody that I worked with that got her book done in 4 months. It was crazy. She had a big why. She had an event that she wanted to have her book done in time for, and she did it. And we helped her make that happen, which was really cool. I think it was about 4 months. It was really quick. Either way, you want to make sure that you know up front the timeline, what's involved, so you can kind of maybe like re-engineer backwards how much time you're going to want to allow for the writing piece. So as we've talked about already, we've got the pre-creation, we've got the creation, which is the writing piece, the editing, production, and marketing. So let's not even talk about marketing, because that's a whole other animal in itself, but the production piece, that can take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if you've got everything ready, it can go quicker, or it could take longer. Because the layout sometimes could take a long time, going back and forth. You also, once your book is laid out, you want to have it kind of reviewed again to make sure nothing is missing and that the layout designer didn't mess anything up. So I wouldn't rush the production process seriously. You want to make sure that you allow enough time. If your book is really complicated, you may need 4 to 8 weeks. So depending on your book, the person that's helping you will really guide you on what that looks like. But 3 to 4 weeks is a pretty good length for a typical how-to book. And then you've got the editing piece. And that could take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks general. Now, it could take less or it could take a ton more, depending on how complicated the edits are going to be for your book. But you want to really just make sure you give that editor enough time to go back and forth with those revisions. Now, editing is not a matter of just sending your manuscript to the editor and it comes back perfect. It is a process, because they're going to suggest edits. You're going to approve them. You're going to deny them. You'll go back and forth a few times. You may even want to send it to a second editor just for one final look-see, to make sure that there's no spelling errors, punctuation, or anything like that. But all being said, for a typical book, you want to allow a good 8 weeks and longer if you have it for that piece. So that will help you kind of re-engineer your finish line and kind of figure out when you want to make sure you're done with the writing piece. I don't know what that looks like for you, but it could take a long time or could take a quick time. And then let's talk a little bit about pre-marketing, because while you're writing, we already talked about, building your audience, but let's create some sort of process. So all of this buzz and this activity leads to some sort of action that helps you in your end result of book sales or product sales or course sales or coaching sales, whatever that is for you. So I would create some sort of landing page that will help you start collecting people's contact information. Continue to do market research, continue to blog, share images about your book, create a content marketing calendar, and start, talking about the process of writing your book. But if you have a landing page that is simply dedicated to your upcoming book, and people will opt in to get a pre-sale copy or a free chapter or whatever you want to do, this may be the time to start creating that. And as I mentioned a couple times earlier, these are some of the resources. Scrivener, I mentioned 200 words a day is an app that will get you in the process of writing continually. Grammarly, I never even knew about Grammarly till about 2 years ago. I've heard of it, but I'm like, I don't need that. But it really, because I actually tried it online, but I didn't do the paid version. So I'm like, well, this is kind of cumbersome. But now I have the paid version, and it is probably one of my favorite tools out there, because I make lots of mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes. I just even spoke incorrectly. But this will help you refine your work so you're being as educated as possible. Now, of course, you're going to work with an editor, but this Grammarly will help make the editing process a lot easier, and it's very easy for you to do. And it also connects to your laptop, your PC, your web. Like, I'm on my website making edits, and it actually is connected into my website. So anytime that there's an error while I'm in WordPress, it will tell me. And so it makes the results much better and more refined. And Otter AI is a resource that will help you take your recorded scripts, anything you record with your voice into a recording, it will transcribe it to actual text. And this is another piece that I thought would be helpful when you are just trying to define the size of your book. These are the standard sizes on Amazon for you to choose one without having it be a custom and more expensive option. So I wanted to throw this slide in here as a kind of information on this resource. And your homework is to keep writing and to be consistent. And I have shared a big, very complex Microsoft Excel timeline that goes through multiple steps of the whole process, way more in depth than I shared here. But that is available to you to download and kind of plug that into your process. And that's all I have for you today, except for this one little extra credit piece. I want you to start thinking about what you're going to include on the cover of your book. So these are some suggestions to make sure that you think about what is possible. What problem does your book solve? That's critical. How is your book different than others? Why is it unique? Why are you the expert in this area? An overview of what's included, testimonials and endorsements, and a short author bio. Now, this seems like a lot of stuff to have on the cover of your book, and you don't necessarily need all of it. You could maybe put the bio inside, testimonials inside. You could do a really short paragraph about what the book is about, and include all of these topics: the problem, the differentiator, you as an expert, in an overview. Everything can be done in one small paragraph if it's done correctly. And that's all I have. So I will see you in Module 10.